Welcome to FarmBeats for Students, precision agriculture experiences for school and home. In this video, we're going to focus on the student experience part of FarmBeats for Students program, specifically the FarmBeats Sensors Excel workbook. This workbook is part of the free curriculum you can download from the FarmBeats for Students page on Microsoft Educator Center, the MEC. It's in the complete curriculum, Big Ideas 1 and 2, and the Student Activities downloads, and it's used with Student Activities 1.1 Soil Sense, 1.2 Surrounded by Sensors, 1.3 Thirsty Notification, and 1.4 Growing Data. As you can see, you and your students will be using this workbook a lot, so you'll want to understand all of its parts and how it works. When you click to download the curriculum from the MEC, it will be stored as a zip file. Once you have the zip file downloaded to your machine, right-click the file and choose Extract. You'll select a location on your computer to store all the files. The first thing you should know is that you and your students will not use a shared workbook for the activities. Each student or group of students will use their own copy and save their own data. Use a local copy of the Excel workbooks that have been saved to your computer. The workbooks will not work correctly with Excel online. Also, ensure that your version of Excel is at least 2101. In Excel, you can check your version by clicking File, Account, About Excel. When you open the workbook, you might see a security warning. The file might be read-only, and it might not be the right size to fill your screen. Let's take a look at those things. The message bar in Excel displays security alerts when there's potentially unsafe content like macros, ActiveX controls, or data connections in the file you want to open. Or it may be that the file is read-only. Ours is both. It has macros and it's read-only. When you know the content is from a reliable source, also like ours, you can click Enable Content to enable the content and make it a trusted document. Next, you want to make sure you're using a file you've saved to your local machine and not an online or shared version. You can keep the file name the same or rename it in a way that makes it unique to you. Remember, don't use a shared copy and don't use Excel online. You want to record your own data and save it. If the workbook doesn't fill your whole screen and there's too much gray space around the working area, use the slider or click the zoom percentage in the lower right corner of your screen to open the zoom dialog and make adjustments. When you open the workbook, the first worksheet you see is the introduction. Along the bottom, you can see some of the other tabs in the workbook, but not all of them. The next slide is the table of contents, and when you click that tab, this is what you see. The overview tells us that in this workbook, we'll learn how to use our pie to collect agricultural data and how to use Excel to store and analyze it. Below that is a description of each worksheet. Each of the blue worksheet titles are links and will take you right to that page when you click it. We've already seen the introduction and table of contents, so let's look next at interactions. The Interactions tab will show you how to enable Data Streamer, as well as how to use the different buttons that interact with the workbook and the Pi. When you're using the Raspberry Pi in this workbook, it's important to know how to operate it. First, to allow communication between the Pi and Excel, you must enable the Data Streamer add-in. The Interactions tab has a link to a page that will show you how. Data Streamer is available for free to all Microsoft 365 subscribers. If you're a Microsoft 365 subscriber, make sure you have the latest version of Office. If you don't see an entry for the Data Streamer add-in in the COM add-ins dialog box, it's because either your version of Office or Excel doesn't include it, or your organization's system administrator has made it unavailable. Either way, you'll want to reach out for help to your local IT staff. To enable Data Streamer, go to File, Options, Add-ins. Make sure COM add-ins is selected in the Manage box and click Go. In the COM add-ins dialog box, make sure to select the box next to Microsoft Data Streamer for Excel add-in, then click OK. The other text on this worksheet will show you how to interact with the entire workbook and understand what a cell does or can do based on how it looks. The next worksheet is Plant Information, where you can explore data about different plants and their ideal parameters. You can sort and filter through the plant library to understand and plan out your garden, and you can add your own plants at the bottom of the table, as many as you want. Next is the Single Sensor Dashboard. Here you can see the most recent data collected from a single sensor on the pie. Click the Sensor Type button to choose which sensor activity you're looking at here. The x-axis on the chart shows you the most recent 250 rows of data, but what do we mean by rows? When data is collected, oftentimes it's stored in a database in an organized way. Excel is an example of a database where records are organized in rows and columns. In our database, a record is a collection of sensor readings taken at a specific time. Now, it wouldn't do us much good if every time that information came in, it was random and unorganized. In Excel, that organization is represented in rows, running horizontally, and columns, running vertically. Each record of sensor readings is stored in a single row, and each collection of like attributes, for example, all the air temperature readings, are stored in a single column. These rows and columns are collected on the Data In tab. When we see data on our dashboards, the x-axis will show you the number of rows that are represented. Don't worry about that too much right now. Just know that you don't want to manipulate the data on the 3 blue tabs in your workbook or delete them. Next is the Live Data dashboard. Here you can visualize a snapshot of the most recent data from your pie for all 5 sensors. Again, this is the most recent 250 rows of data. If the graphs are shaded, they aren't here, but we'll see some that are in a minute. It indicates that you have set a parameter for that sensor to activate the agent, and we'll see what that means next. For both the single and live data dashboards and agent configuration, you'll need to connect your pie to your computer via USB, following the instructions in the FarmBeats Student Kit Build Instructions document. Connect the black, white, and green wires to the pins, being very careful to leave a space of 2 pins at the end of the row, and leave the red wire unconnected. Plug the serial data cable into a USB port on your computer, and then, in the ribbon, select Data Streamer, Connect a Device, Start Data. Next is Agent Configuration. Here you can configure the agent for your pie, setting the rules for the agent turning on and off based on your sensor readings. When you configure the agent, you create rules to turn on and off the relay and the light on the relay, and see that influence on the data in the live sensor dashboard. Step 1 is the timing of the agent. Set the interval to tell the agent how often in seconds to check if the rules you're about to create are met. Set the duration to tell the agent how long to keep the relay and the light on the relay on when the rules are met. The duration should be less than or equal to the interval. If they're the same, the relay will stay on continuously as long as the rules continue to be met. In this example, the agent will check every 10 seconds to see if the rules are met, and if they are, the agent will turn on the light for 5 seconds and then turn it off again until it checks again. If you wanted the agent to check less often, say every 10 minutes, you could set the interval to 600. Remember, the agent is set in seconds. You could leave the duration at 5 seconds, or you could change that too. Step 2 are the agent parameters. You can create up to 3 rules. First, click in the Sensor Type box for rule number 1. See the tooltip? It's telling us to select one of the 5 sensor options here: soil temperature, soil moisture, air temperature, air humidity, or sunlight visible. Let's choose soil moisture. If you aren't sure what to do, for many cells you can hover over or click in it for a tooltip. Next is the operator. We can choose greater than or less than to form a conditional statement. Let's say we want the agent to turn on the relay when the soil moisture level is greater than 0.4. So we choose greater than as the operator, and then 0.4 for the threshold. But how did we know what values were acceptable for soil moisture threshold? By looking at the sensor key table. The sensor key tells us that for soil moisture, acceptable values fall between 0.0 for dry and 1.0 for wet. Let's enter one more parameter for our agent. Maybe we only want the agent to turn on the relay when the soil moisture is greater than 0.4. We've already set that. But it also must be hotter than 75 degrees Fahrenheit. That would look like this. Notice that these are and statements and not or statements. That means that if it's 78 degrees outside, the agent will only activate if the soil moisture level is also above 0.4. Also notice that our rule is color-coded. Rule 1 is red, Rule 2 is blue, and Rule 3 is yellow. Why do you think that is? I'll show you in just a minute. Step 3 is to activate our agent by saving it to the device and then turning it on. You'll need to have your device connected with Data Streamer for this step. Notice that when the rules on the agent, if there are any, don't match the rules on your agent configuration page, Excel will alert you by displaying new rules unsaved. If the agent has not been activated, you'll see a red Agent Inactive. Once either or both of these things change, the message text and color changes as shown. You can see here that I've saved our rules and the agent is active, but that the relay is not turned on. Why? Because one or more of my parameters have not been met. Let's take a look back at the Live Sensor dashboard to see if we can see why. You can click the blue Live Sensor dashboard link at the top of the page or select the tab at the bottom of the workbook. Both will take you to the same page we were looking at earlier. When we looked a couple minutes ago, this page was blank and there wasn't any color coding on the sensor graphs. With my Raspberry Pi and sensors connected to my machine with Data Streamer, I'm starting to get sensor values in my workbook. See the short line on the left side of each graph? Also, remember the color coding attached to our agent rules on the agent configuration page? That's what we're seeing now on this page. We can see where I've set the air temperature range to be values above 75 and soil moisture to be greater than 0.4. Because neither of our sensor readings are in that range, the agent is not active. But what happens when we make an adjustment to our agent configuration? Let's reset the values to be air temperature greater than 60, leave the soil moisture value alone, but put our sensor in a cup with water. You can see I've saved the new agent parameters and the relay is on. Look at the Live Sensor dashboard. Both sensors now have readings that fall inside the range for the agent. Data Journal is where you store data in Excel for analysis. The Data Journal is used to record data about the environment and plant health. Data collection can be automated or manual. Data collection on your Pi is automated when connected to a power source and the logger is active. The logger will take sensor readings on the hour, when the relay state changes, or when the blue button on the Pi is pressed for a few seconds. Manual data collection can occur anytime you enter pH levels and plant health on the observation table. Your Raspberry Pi has a log file where it stores sensor data. The Set Raspberry Pi Logging section is where you tell the Pi if you want it to record data from your sensors when it's not connected directly to your computer. In my worksheet, the message in red says Logger Inactive. If I wanted to start logging data, I click the Start Logging Data button. Pay attention to the Delete Pi Logs button. If you click it, all the data in the Pi's log file will be deleted, and once it's deleted, you won't be able to get it back. To set logging, retrieve data from the Pi, or delete data from the Pi, you must be connected to the Pi with a USB serial cable and have data streaming turned on. Next, let's retrieve the logs I've been collecting on my Pi. In the Pi Storage Table section, we see that our Raspberry Pi has a log file where it stores sensor data. We use the Import Sensor process here to import that data into our Pi Storage Table in Excel on this page. Then we can visualize that data on the Data Insights tab. First, we click the Prepare Log Data button on the Import Sensor Data section. Through your USB serial connection, Excel checks in on the Pi. If there are rows of sensor data on your Pi, you'll see the rows imported cell change as the rows are counted, and there will be an arrow between Preparing Please Wait and Rows Imported. When the green check mark appears, click Add Log Rows to add the new log rows to your table. You should see the rows populate in your data journal. You should save your copy of the FarmBeats Sensors Workbook. Optionally, you can delete the logs from the Pi, but it's not required. You can also clear the table of the data you've imported by clicking the Clear Table link. This will only clear the data from the workbook. It will not clear data from the Pi. The data journal can also be used to enter data manually. Use the observation tables to record pH levels or notes about your plants. Type your values in the fields and then select the Add button. Don't see the plant you're looking for when you click in the plant field? You can add it on the Plant Information tab, or you can leave the plant field blank to enter a note about the garden in general. Data Insights is where you visualize your stored data. With your Pi data stored to the workbook on the Data Journal tab, you can examine the data you've collected over time on this worksheet. The x-axis of the charts will change dynamically based on the date range of data you've collected. If you want to explore further, click the link Pivot Table Instructions, and there you'll find directions on how to create a pivot table and analyze the information in more detail. Comparing datasets. Explore visualization of multiple datasets for comparison. Unlike the visualizations on other worksheets, this visualization features a locked example dataset. The chart shows two sets of pre-generated soil moisture data for two different tomato plants. You'll use this chart in Activity 1.1 Soil Sense. Introduction to GDU. Learn about growing degree units and use tables and ideas to better understand your data. Because this activity includes many steps, I'll review it in its own video, but here you'll learn to use Excel features to calculate the growing degree units and generate insights to make better use of agricultural resources. That's the last slide you'll interact with in this workbook. You might have noticed that there are 3 more worksheets colored blue at the end of all the tabs. The FarmBeats for Students Excel workbook has 3 blue tabs labeled Data In, Data Out, and Settings. Don't modify the data on these tabs unless you're instructed. The tabs are created by the Data Streamer add-in for Excel. If you alter or delete these pages, Data Streamer may not function properly and formulas used by the workbook will not work. If you accidentally delete the data there, or even a whole page, quickly close the workbook without saving it and reopen a previous version. Okay, that's the FarmBeats Sensors Workbook. I hope you got everything you need to get out there and start working with your own data.